In this video, I am going to solve another numerical example for Lemon's problem. This problem will be different than the previous one, mainly because the statement is going to be different. I know it may be confusing, but I will actually argue that technically it's exactly the same. Here, one difference is going to be there are going to be three types of car. Rather than lemons versus high quality or good quality cars, we're going to have high quality, medium quality, and low quality cars. That's it. That's the only difference. All right. And the outcome is going to be slightly different. All right. So here is the specific model. So we have one buyer and one seller. Okay. So technically speaking, whether I assume one buyer versus one seller or 100 buyers and versus 100 sellers, technically speaking, the solution is going to be exactly the same. All right. So here I have one buyer, one seller. The buyer is interested in buying a used car that the seller owns. All right. The seller has one car, and the seller's car could be either high quality with probability 1/2. So these numbers in the parentheses are the probability that the seller's car is a high quality. With 1/4 probability, the seller's car is a medium quality. And with 1/4 probability, the seller's car is low quality. All right, so there are three possible types of car. And the seller owns one of those. Well, the seller's willingness to sell is $3,000 if it happens that the seller's car is high quality. All right, so H corresponds to high quality car. The seller's willingness to sell, meaning the lowest price he's willing to accept is $2,000 if the car's quality is medium. However, if the car is lemon, like the worst quality car, well, the seller's willingness to sell is $1,000. All right? Well, what about the buyer's willingness to pay? The highest price the buyer is willing to pay. Well, it depends on the quality of the car. The buyer is willing to pay up to $4,000 if it is a high quality car. He's willing to pay up to $2,500 if the quality of the car is medium. And finally, he's willing to pay up to $500 if the quality of the car is low. All right? So as we discussed earlier, the seller's and the buyer's utility functions are as follows. The seller basically gets a benefit from selling the car, so it's P if the price of the car is P dollars, minus because he sold the car, you can think of it as the opportunity cost. So P minus willingness to sell is his net benefit. Well, this is the utility of the seller if the trade occurs. If there is no trade, he's not going to receive any price, but he doesn't have to suffer this opportunity cost of selling. So his net utility will be zero. All right. So because of this, the seller is not going to accept any price lower than $3,000 if it happens that his car is a high quality car. And he will not accept any price lower than $1,000 if it happens that his car is a low quality car. While on the other hand, the buyer's utility is his willingness to pay minus, so this is the benefit of owning that car, minus the price that he pays. So this is the net benefit if the trade occurs at a price P. If the trade does not occur, well, then the buyer's utility is zero. So therefore, the buyer will never pay a price higher than his willingness to pay for that specific car. So if the buyer knows that the car is a high quality car, he's not going to accept prices above $4,000. But he will, because the willingness to pay for high quality car is $4,000, so he's willing to accept any price lower than $4,000. All right? Okay, good. Well, here in this scenario, we are going to answer two questions. One, well, the first best, what if quality is observable? All right, so the buyer can observe the quality of the car. And then the second question is, what if quality unobservable. So in the first scenario, there is a symmetric information. So whatever the seller knows, the buyer will know as well. In the second one, there's an asymmetric information. The seller knows the quality of his car, but the buyer doesn't. All right? So in that case, the question is, what's going to be the market equilibrium outcome? I mean, the price. And which car is going to be sold? And same for the first part. Well, if the quality is observed, all right, we know that if the car is high quality, all right, the price is going to be PH, and we know that the seller is going to accept any price higher than $3,000, and the buyer is willing to pay up to $4,000. So any price in between this range, let me put it this way, if the car is high quality, the buyer and the seller will accept any price in this range. All right? So if the car is high quality, the car will be traded at some price in this range. Well, if it is a medium quality, well, then we know that the seller is willing to sell at a price $2,000 or more, so PM, let's call it, and the buyer is willing to pay $25,000 or less, but no more than $2,500. And so therefore, if the price is in this range, meaning higher than $2,000 but lower than $2,500, well, then the medium quality car will be traded, because that price will be, any price in this range will be acceptable by the buyer and the seller. And finally, if the quality of the car is in fact the low quality car, in which case, remember, we are in part one, meaning the buyers can observe the quality. The buyers are going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to accept the price as long as PM, the price, PL, let's call it this way. As long as the price of the low quality car is less than $500, because otherwise we know that the buyer is going to reject. And we know that the sellers are going to accept the price as long as the price of the car is more than $1,000. So therefore, any price in this range will be accepted by the buyer and the seller. But the problem is there is no real number, there is no price which is higher than 1,000 but lower than 500. There's no such number. So therefore, what does that mean? That means no low quality. I mean, when I say no, I mean if the car is low quality, so the low quality car is not traded, but only high and medium level quality cars are. All right? So if, again, let me summarize, if the buyer can observe the seller's, the quality of the seller's car, well then the low quality car will not be traded. Only the high and the medium quality cars will be traded according to those prices. All right? So the high quality car will be sold at a price something higher than $3,000 but less than $4,000, and the medium quality car will be sold at a price that is higher than $2,000 but lower than $2,500. Again, low quality car will not be traded. Okay, well, this is the first best outcome. I mean, this is the efficient outcome. All right? So again, this is the efficient outcome. Well, the interesting case is, what if the quality of the car is not observable by the buyer? Well, in that case, the buyer is going to make well, because he's facing an uncertainty, we have to calculate the buyer's expected willingness to pay. All right? So expected willingness to pay. Well, what does that mean? That means the buyer knows that he is willing to pay $4,000 for the car if it is high quality. Well, what is and $25,000 $2,500 if it is medium quality, and only $500 if it is low quality. All right? Well, what is the likelihood? So my utility is going to be 4,000 minus P if it is high quality. Well, P is the price. All right? Remember, the seller has one car. So we're not going to have different prices. We're going to observe, the buyer will observe just one price because there's only one car in this market. So the price of the car is P dollars, let's say. So this is the utility, net utility of the buyer if they make a trade and if the car is a high quality. This is going to be his net realized utility if the car is a medium quality. And this is his utility if the car is the lowest quality. These are the realized utilities, net utilities. Well, the thing is, the buyer's utility is going to be this only if the car is high quality. And the buyer doesn't know if it is a high or medium or low quality. He just have a belief that with 1/2 probability, the car is going to be high quality, in which case this is going to be his net utility. Plus, remember, this is how we calculate the expected utility, which I assume that you already learned in Intermediate Microeconomics 1 course. So with 1/4 probability, the car is going to be medium quality, and in which case, this is going to be the buyer's net realized utility. And then finally, with 1/4 probability, the car is actually going to be lemon, the lowest quality, and in that case, his realized utility will be this. So therefore, the buyer's expected utility is going to be this weighted sum. Well, if you calculate this weighted sum, what do I have? I have 1/2 times 4,000 plus 1/4 times 2,500 plus 1/4 times 500 minus 1/2 P plus, let me put it this way, okay, 1/2 P minus 1/4 P minus 1/4 P. Well, if you sum this thing up, you're going to have, this is $2,000, all right, so 2,000, and this is 3,000 divided by 4. So if you divide 3,000 by 4, you're going to have $750. So therefore, it is $2,750 minus, if you take into P parentheses, you're going to see 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. So it's 1. So this is just minus P. So the expected utility of the consumers is 2,750 minus P. That means the buyer does not pay a price or does not accept price P if P is greater than, if it is equal to, he's going to be indifferent between accepting and not accepting. But if it is greater than $2,750, well, then the buyer is not going to accept the price. All right? So therefore, if the buyer in this scenario where the quality is not observable, well, then the market price has to be less than $2,750. Okay? Well, are we done? No, not yet, because what about the buyers, the sellers? I mean, the sellers with the high quality car. Is he going to sell his car at that price? No. In fact, so this is the price line in a sense. All right. So we know that, so this is a price, P. So if P is lower than $3,000, only medium and low type car owners will actually be on the market. The high type car owner will definitely not sell his car if the price is lower than $3,000. All right? And if the price is less than $2,000. What does that mean? I mean, not less than or equal to, strictly less than $2,000. Well, it means only the low type car owner is actually selling his car. All right, so the price is actually providing additional information. So here, what if, for example, the price is higher than $3,000? Well, both high type and also medium and low type car owners are willing to sell their cars at a price higher than $3,000. Again, don't forget, the seller doesn't have any concern of being a liar or cheater, all right? So here, even if the low quality car, even if the seller's car is low quality, he will gladly sell his car at a price higher than $3,000. Okay? So there is no legal or psychological cost of selling a low quality car at a high price. So therefore, prices above $3,000 provides no information. The prices above $2,000 but lower than $3,000, as I said, only the M and L type of buyers are going to, so maybe this is not correct. So maybe I should make this as follows. So if the price is in this range, meaning if it is somewhere in between $2,000 but strictly less than $3,000, only the low and the medium type sellers, car owners, will actually sell. And if it is strictly less than $2,000, well, M types will drop out. Only the low types are willing to sell their cars. Okay, so the prices will be informative as the price decreases. So what do we know from the expected utility calculation? We know that the buyer is not going to accept price. Let's use a different color, if I may. So this is the kind of a threshold price level for the buyer. So any price above this is unacceptable by the buyer, unless he can be sure that the car is a high quality car, and he can't. All right. All right. Well, then the problem is the market price has to be lower than $2,750,000. Okay. But the problem is, if the price must be lower than $2,750, well, we know that the high type car owner, the seller, will actually not selling his car. So whatever car is there to be sold, it must be either the low quality or high quality at a price lower than $2,750. Well, in that case, what is the expected utility of the buyer? Well, his expected utility is not 2,750 minus P. It's going to be lower than this, because now he is sure that the car is not a high type car. It's definitely one of the low or medium level. So therefore, his expected willingness to pay, let me call it this way, or expected utility, is going to be the following. Look, the car for sure not high type. So with zero probability, my net utility will be 4,000 minus P. All right, so P is something less than 2,750 or more than 2,000 maybe. Okay, well, but it's zero probability because I know that the high type guy is not going to be selling at that price. Well, with 1/4 probability, is it a 1/4 probability? Now, remember, it's either high type, so what I know is that the probability of high quality is zero now because he's not selling his car. So therefore, the car is either medium quality or low quality. So the thing is, what is the probability that the car is a medium quality? Is it 1/4? No. There are two types of car once the price is lower than $2,750. Let me repeat. Once the market price, P, is less than $2,750, and let's suppose higher than 2,000, there are only two possible cars. And these are medium and low quality. And each are equally likely. Remember, 1-4 and 1-4. So therefore, because there are now only two available type of cars, with 1/2 probability, the car is going to be medium quality. We call this Bayesian updating. All right. So we update the beliefs by using the Bayes rule. For those who took a statistics or probability theory would understand what I'm saying. So with 1/2 probability, it's going to be a medium quality car, in which case my realized utility is going to be 2,500. Remember, this is how much I'm willing to pay for a medium quality car minus P, plus with the remaining probability car is going to be the worst quality, the low quality, in which case as a buyer I'm willing to pay only $500. So 500 minus P is going to be my realized net utility. So therefore my expected utility is going to be this aggregate sum, and if you do this summation, it's going to be 1,500 minus P. Okay, so as you see, now the buyer actually is, because the price declined below $2,750 and because the seller of high quality car will not sell below $3,000. This gives us additional information, and according to this additional information, the buyer's willingness to pay should be actually $1,500. All right? So it's not $2,750. In fact, he will be willing to pay $1,500 or less, not more. So then the problem is, once again, we go back to the seller's behavior. If the seller is, if the price is less than or equal to 1,500, high type is still out of the market. Medium type is also out of the market. So if there is a seller who is trying to sell his car at a price P less than $1,500, well, it must be the low type, low quality car owner. So therefore, with probability 1, the seller is actually a low quality car. And in which case, one final time, I'm going to calculate expected willingness to pay of the buyer, which is what? With 0 probability, it is the high quality car. So it's going to be net utility is going to be 0 times 4,000 minus P. Plus, with 0 probability, it's a medium level car, in which case his utility would be 2,500 minus P. And then finally, with 1 probability, right? I mean, if it is not high or medium, well, then it must be low quality. In which case, it's going to be 500 minus P. So therefore, the expected utility of the buyer is going to be 500 minus P. So the buyer is not actually going to pay $1,500 because that was the price he's willing to pay, assuming and believing that the car could be high type or low type. But in fact, the 1,500 is so low that the medium type buyer, the sellers, will not be selling the car. They will be out of the market. So therefore, the buyer should update his beliefs and his utility. And so he is actually not going to pay more than $500. And then finally, the problem is, well, let's put 500 here. So the price is going to be less than or equal to $500 in this market when the information is asymmetric. But are we done? Not yet. One final time, look at who would sell his car at a price $500. Throughout this solution, all we did is we calculated the buyer's expected utility, found his maximum willingness to pay. And then we looked at the seller and try to understand which type of seller will remain in the market. We excluded those who are not going to accept those prices and then recalculated the expected utility. And then we came up with some new threshold price level or new willingness to pay. At that willingness to pay, we again go back to the seller and realize or sort of understand which one of those sellers will exit and remain. And we've realized that both high and medium type sellers will actually exit the market. So that means we have to reevaluate the buyer's expected utility. And so his willingness to pay will decline to $500. And then one final time, at a price 500 or less, what type of car owner would remain in the market? Well, in fact, none. So even the low type car owner is willing to accept prices above $1,000. So that means no seller is going to accept price lower than 500. Thus, there will be no trade. Okay, so that's the conclusion. This is the analysis. That's the conclusion. So if the quality is unobservable and if there is an asymmetric information between the buyer and the seller, well then no buyer and no seller are willing to make a trade, and hence no car will be traded. Zero trade. The efficient outcome, if you remember, would be no trade only if it was a low quality car, but if it is a high or medium quality car, the trade should occur. All right? But in fact here, even though the car owner actually has a high quality car, he's not going to be able to sell it. The reason is he would like to sell it at a price $3,000 or more, but the problem is the sellers, the buyers are not willing to pay that much. Or the medium quality car owner, he is willing to sell his car at a price higher than or equal to $2,000, but again, the buyer does not want to pay more than $1,500 if it's only low type or the medium type. And so they're not going to make any agreement about the satisfying price, and so there's going to be no trade. So therefore, it's an inefficient outcome. I hope that was clear.